This is the worst things have felt around the Chicago Bears this season. It doesn't mean all hope is lost just yet, but Matt Eberflus needs to find some answers quickly, and the injury situation isn't helping.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On the show today, we try and pick up some of the pieces here after another ugly Bears loss, this time to the Arizona Cardinals, where really feels like stuff's hitting the fan at the moment across the roster. This was the first time where it felt like the defense failed at the same time that the offense definitely failed. So we'll kind of check in on some of the mess on each side of the ball and the role that injuries are playing in both of those, but certainly not excusing either opportunity in this game. And then I kind of want to look forward a little bit too, as far as, hey, you know what? The season's not over as bad as it feels right now, but there's going to be some ups and downs, and where does that sort of leave this team as we look ahead and think back at what the rest of the year is going to look like, and what will this season really be judged by the rest of the year. But right now, we've known that the offense has been a problem. This was the first game where the defense really contributed its fair share to the problem. And yet, even so, you still come away with this game seeing 9 points on offense. And yes, that's been a recurring issue, and yet you're never going to win a game scoring 9 points. You know, you might win a game giving up 29, but it's sure a lot harder to win a game only scoring 9 points. Not scoring an offensive touchdown is a major, major red flag. And it's been a question mark all season, this offense, and now especially the last couple of games getting back into it. And a lot of this for me starts with what's going on the offensive line up front being just a complete mess. And we kind of predicted a little bit of that coming into this game against the Cardinals, given how much the offensive line had struggled against the Commanders, and that Dan Quinn's Washington defense kind of showed you some of the template here of like, hey, if you just blitz and stunt this Bears offensive line, especially with the injuries they're dealing with right now, they're not going to be able to consistently pick up the extra pass rushers and block guys one-on-one for long enough for Caleb Williams to be able to make enough plays in this offense. And we saw problems with Larry Borom at left tackle. And then, eventually Darnell Wright gets hurt, and you got Jake Curhan stepping in at right tackle, and an injured Tevin Jenkins is trying to play through it at left guard. And we've kind of already had questions about, the center and right guard with Coleman Shelton and Matt Pryor. Like, this is a mess of an offensive line that all you can really hope for is some improved health over time, and we'll get into the injury situation a little bit more later on. But I think that's where you start to see then the running game issues poke their head again. DeAndre Swift, 51 yards, 3.2 yards per carry in this game. He had, I think, a 13-yard run was his longest run of the game, but it was a lot of those, 1 yard on 1st and 10 leaves you in a 2nd and 9 type of situations where it's just 2 yards here, 3 yards there, 1 yard there, lost there. And you could never really get a balanced offense, right? An offense that could threaten you significantly enough on the ground to then make Caleb Williams' job a little bit easier. So he ends up passing 41 times in this game compared to the 16 handoffs to Swift and 3 more to Roschon Johnson, but really a 19 to 41 handoff to pass play ratio there. Plus you take in the Caleb Williams scrambles in that mix as well, and it just becomes a lot more skewed. And maybe this comes back to Caleb as well, where Caleb Williams had another bad game, back-to-back weeks where he's struggling as well. And I think that's not purely caused by the offensive line issues, but it is exacerbated by the offensive line issues. That sometimes Caleb just misses a throw, and it's not particularly that there was a bunch of pressure on that play or something the offensive line did, but sometimes he just misses plays. And then sometimes there's pressure in his face right away and there's nothing he can do about it. Sometimes he's doing too much and trying to escape too many sacks and trying to extend plays a little bit too long and needs to do a little bit less. Needs to understand when to just take more of the easy stuff. Take the check down, take the quick first throw, even if it's only for a yard or two, as opposed to escaping and swirling around. And sometimes, he did a few of those and made spectacular throws, and especially finding Rome Odunze on a couple of those plays. So, he had a great game in this one. If you're looking for a silver lining, Rome Odunze, absolutely part of that here. But also, a throwaway works okay there too. I still thought, the offensive line played very poorly. A couple of those sacks felt to me a little bit on Caleb Williams just trying to do a little bit too much where, that late in the play, the offensive line's not blocking. You can't count on the offensive line to block for you that much anymore. Certainly some of the sacks are just on the offensive line, but some of them are on Caleb maybe just trying to do a little bit too much. And it just feels like he's pressing again and trying to be not like the hero per se, but just trying to carry the offense on his own because the offensive line is struggling, because they can't run the ball very well, because Keenan Allen is struggling a little bit in this game, and guys just aren't on the same page, and passes aren't where they need to go, and he's just trying to do too much. The weapons aren't getting involved. Cole Kmet's not having much of an impact at all in this offense again, even though it felt like they had figured some of that stuff out. That's the concerning, frustrating part is, right? You kind of thought you had made some progress in the offensive line. Certainly you had made a bunch of progress in the running game. You'd made good progress in getting Cole Kmet involved in the passing game. You'd made good progress in Keenan Allen getting more involved and DJ Moore being a big part. And a lot of that seemed to fall back to where this team had been earlier in the season that you thought you had gotten through. And again, we kind of come back to offensive coordinator, play calling concerns here with Shane Waldron just not being able to make DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and Cole Kmet into a successful, consistent passing offense. You've got all these great weapons, and the Bears still don't feel like they're able to use them properly. And sure, some of that's on the individual receiver to hold on to passes that are thrown their way and to make sure they're disciplined in what route they're running and at what depth they're running routes and creating enough separation and all that. But some of it's on the offensive coordinator not getting them in positions to succeed. Some of it's on Caleb Williams not pulling the trigger when he sees them, or some of it's on the offensive line then disrupting the timing of the play so the receiver's open, but not when the quarterback can get it to him because of the pressure, right? That's where it's such a mess, and it's hard to start piecing it back together because you can't just wave a magic wand and fix this offensive line tomorrow. You can get healthier, but that's about all you can do. And even at full health, I'm not sure that we have a ton of strength and faith in this offensive line right now. So it's not just a problem that's going to be solved instantly, but I don't think it's a problem that's permanent necessarily either. That it doesn't mean, this offense is never going to figure anything out for the rest of the season, and that they're never going to score any points, and Caleb's never going to score any more touchdowns, and he's a bust, and everything's ruined. No, I don't think it's quite there either. And I do want to look at some of the ebbs and flows of what we should expect for the rest of the season as this team struggles with these inconsistencies. But I also want to look at how injuries are making matters more difficult on both sides of the ball, but particularly, I think, with the defense and the struggles they had, kind of surprisingly, against the Arizona Cardinals in this one, next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by Prize Picks, the better way to play daily fantasy sports. I really enjoy making my Prize Picks because it helps give you a little bit something to tune in for every single game. Unlike the other daily fantasy platforms where you're setting your lineup against other people's lineups and you can only win if your lineup is better than 500 other people, with Prize Picks, you're in complete control because they set stat projections and you pick more or less on at least 2 players, and you can win up to 100 times your money. So whether it's, Caleb Williams' passing yards, DeAndre Swift's rushing yards, Rome Odunze's receiving yards, you name it, they've got it across multiple sports at Prize Picks. Football, basketball, well, no longer baseball, but hockey, soccer, tennis, whatever's in season, they've got it on Prize Picks. So download the app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So whether your first lineup is successful or not, you put that $5 in, they're going to give you $50 right into your account when you download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at Prize Picks. Run your game. We thought we could count on this Chicago Bears defense week in and week out to keep the offense in the game at the very least and be that anchor, that consistent rock to lean on and say, hey, you know what? The offense keeps going 3 and out and settling for field goals, but at least the other team only has 7 points. The other team only has 10 points. The other team only has 13 points. It's still a 1-possession game. It's still a 2-possession game. The defense is going to give you a turnover. They're going to keep you in it, and you're going to be right there till the very end if you can just buy enough time for Caleb Williams and this offense to get going. And this was the first game this year where that really fell apart and that broke down. That sure, early on, it's 7-0 or whatever, you can handle that, but it felt like the straw that broke the camel's back was that at the end of the first half there, right, that the 53-yard breakaway touchdown run by Demercado, a running back I'm guessing you hadn't heard of before this game against the Arizona Cardinals, because I had not heard of Amari Demercado entering this game, an undrafted free agent out of TCU last year, I believe. To break away for a 53-yard run in that situation with, 12 seconds left on the clock, just by midfield, and the safeties are just standing there and let the wide receivers run up and block them so they have no angle to chase them. I mean, it's just everything about that play encapsulated the state of the franchise currently, but also then highlights significantly the defense's shortcomings in this game. Like to be gashed that poorly on the ground, to give up over 100 yards to James Conner, plus 59 to Demercado. I think the Ravens as a team had over 200 rushing yards. Like, I think if you had told me the Bears' run defense was going to get gashed against the Cardinals, I would have guessed it was Kyler Murray scrambling on some plays and really causing them a lot of damage that way. But that really wasn't the case here. His legs weren't that big of a factor, and I mean, even his arm was. I mean, not that he had a bad game by any means, but it was only 150 passing yards, right? It wasn't like it was 13 of 20. Well, this wasn't like some elite Kyler Murray game where he just sliced and diced you up the field. It was really James Conner, consistently running over you, and even Benson. All 3 of their running backs had strong games, and that's a pretty good sign that hey, it's the run defense that's a big issue here, right? James Conner is a very good running back, and he deserves a lot of credit for running well, but also the fact that Demercado and Benson also had pretty good games rushing tells you that, hey, like, it wasn't just the fact that James Conner is really good, but he certainly contributed to a lot of the tackling issues the Bears had, right? Like, they could not consistently bring down James Conner on the first contact. The first guy would get there, he would get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 more yards at that point, or bounce off him completely and just keep carrying this Arizona Cardinals defense, or Arizona Cardinals offense against this Bears defense throughout the course of this game. And I think it's easy enough to say, oh, well, the Bears have injuries on defense, and so that's why the run defense was particularly bad in this game. I think the injuries contributed, but I don't know that the injuries are the sole factor here. Right? I mean, if you look at where they are hurt on this defense, we know, in this game, Montez Sweat misses the game, Kyler Gordon misses the game, Jaquan Brisker. We knew that coming in to the game. Then during the game, you lose the nose tackle Andrew Billings to a pec injury. A couple of cornerbacks, Terrell Smith and Jalen Jones, go out with injuries and don't return. So all of a sudden, okay, you're missing some key pieces there. We know Brisker's good up in the box in the running game. Kyler Gordon's physical and can help out in the running game from the slot. Billings is obviously probably your best run defender up front, and Montez Sweat contributes significantly in the running game. So yes, those are certainly a factor in the Bears' inability to stop the run here. But you still had TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds in the middle, and they were getting washed out of plays at the second level consistently. They were overrunning their gaps. They were missing tackles as well in this game. And I also can't help but think back to the idea of okay, you're missing Sweat and Billings, but there are plays in every game where Montez Sweat rotates out and gets a break, and Andrew Billings rotates out and gets a break, and you'll have backups in place of them on the defensive line, and you're still not quite giving up this bad of rushing, right? Like it hasn't been this bad. There's something more than just the injuries here. And there have been signs of this kind of wearing on the Bears over the last few weeks. We've seen them be vulnerable at times in the running game. Certainly, last week, Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler and Jaden Daniels combined for over 150 yards rushing with the Commanders. And then, earlier in the season against the Colts, I think Jonathan Taylor had a really big game against them, and Anthony Richardson with his legs. That's why it's a little bit surprising, too, that, Kyler Murray wasn't part of this. Because, okay, they gave up some scrambles to Jaden Daniels and some scrambles to Anthony Richardson, but, not Kyler Murray, and yet you still had the big run game given up. But it just feels like something that's been kind of wearing them down slowly but surely. And over the course of the year, it's okay, yeah, the Bears have given up some big runs, but they've always been there to stop those drives from ending in touchdowns. And they haven't really given up the big breakaway touchdown runs so much. It was Joe Mixon against the Texans had a big one, was it? Or was it Tony Pollard? It was week 1 or week 2, they gave a big touchdown run. And that was about it in terms of the big breakaway plays there. It would have been week 1, Tony Pollard. But the fact that they're sort of wearing down now is where you get concerned, right? Because we thought this was something that was so reliable on that end of the defense. They did still get the turnover, Reddy Stewart with the forced fumble in there, which was a really nice play by undrafted rookie free agent filling in at the slot cornerback spot. That was the sort of the signature, Bears defense gives Bears offense one more bonus possession here to try and tilt the scales in their favor. But we're not used to the Bears defense going down 21 points or giving up 21 points in a half this season, and then still giving up, I guess 6 more points from there because the safety wasn't on the Bears defense, but still giving up points beyond the 21 in the first half, and not used to them being consistently gashed in the running game and just not having energy or answers. And it just feels to me like there's something more than just injuries here, right? And I start to question the defensive coaching staff a little bit when Montez Sweat's out and Kyler Gordon's out, and you start Dominique Robinson and Reddy Stewart in their place, who have been sitting and inactive pretty much all year. You decide now that Dominique Robinson is not only good enough to play, but good enough to start, and Reddy Stewart, not only good enough to play, but good enough to start ahead of Josh Blackwell. These players have been on the roster all year long, and they go from not playing at all to starting on this defense. Did you not recognize the talent that you had in them? Not that they played, not that Dominic Robinson at least didn't play particularly well, but how do you get to week 8, week 9, week 8, or I guess, 8th game. Anyway, week 9, week 8 for the Bears. How did you just get to this point and say, you know what? We need to get some different guys in there. How is it taking you this long to get to this point? And what were you getting wrong before that? You know what I mean? It just, stuff like that just bothers me that I don't understand how they can have these guys sit, again, not just backups and, okay, you're changing out a starter or whatever, but and go from third string end of the bench to starter as opposed to working your way up incrementally here. Some of these decisions from this team and with this coaching staff continue to floor me as far as just not seeming to know your players and being able to utilize them correctly on offense and defense. And that's part of the bigger picture coaching issue here that has a lot of Bears fans feeling like the sky is falling and worried that, season's done, it's over. Why even, keep watching this Bears team? And I really don't think that's the case either. I don't think this Bears team is still going to win football games and is going to play better football than what we saw this week against the Arizona Cardinals, but there's going to be some hard games and some tough moments, and it's going to be some more ugly too. So I kind of want to look at how we take stock of where this team is now and where we should expect them to go from here, because it's not going to be all bad the entirety of the rest of the year. But how much faith should we have that they can still turn some things around? Well, we'll kind of look at the different scenarios here next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College is now offering more than 40 free online courses. That's right, free, no cost, zero charge, just for you to pique your curiosity and continue your education. Whether you want to go into history, like the rise and fall of the Roman republics, they've got like economics courses, American Constitution and law courses. They even have like a classical music course, a chemistry course. I mean, there's a bunch of cool stuff you can check out, all free of cost. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever you want, tune in wherever you are, and then go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Like, it's for fun. It's not school. No one's forcing you to take any tests here. It's to learn more on your own and not have all the costs that normally come with higher education. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel is here to help you tackle the NFL season here, and they're going to give you some extra bonus bets as well. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win, whether that's betting ahead on the spread where the Bears are opening up as favorites against the New England Patriots in their next upcoming game on Sunday, or you can bet live in-game if you get a hunch during the match and you say, you know what, you weren't as crazy about that initial spread there. It's Bears -6.5 at home. But as the game goes on, you want to jump in on some of that live betting as well with the FanDuel app. They've got live stats, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Chicago Bears are in a particularly low spot right now, right? This is ugly and it feels bad, and it feels like, until they fire Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, nothing is ever going to get better. And this team is never going to figure out how to score points. They're never going to stop an offense ever again, and they're not going to win a game the rest of the year, and everything is ruined. Ho-hum. Why bother tuning in to any more games this season? And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Yes, the schedule is going to get more difficult. Yes, the NFC North is around the corner. And yes, there's going to be some more bad here. But the Bears are not going to finish the season 4-13, right? That's the new math on the schedule with 17 games, 4-13. They're not going to go on. They're not going to lose 9 more games straight. I guess if they do, you can pull this clip and tag in the @freezing cold takes on Twitter or whatever, however you want to do it. But they're going to win another game. They're probably going to win next week against the New England Patriots. Yes, the Cardinals were more difficult than we thought they might be. I don't think the Patriots are going to be that much more difficult than we thought they might be. Yes, they played a close game and took the Tennessee Titans into overtime, but I think the Bears are going to bounce back is too strong of a word against the New England Patriots. I think they'll win. Will we feel great about it? I don't know. But I think they're going to win. They're 6.5-point favorites on FanDuel for a reason, right? We expect a Chicago Bears victory against the Patriots. But even bigger picture than that, right? We knew that this Bears team was going to have an up and down year. We knew that this Bears team, when we talked preseason and we would talk about record predictions, how many games are the Bears going to win this season? I think most people, and I think the FanDuel odds were right around 8-9 wins. I think the more optimistic Bears fans were saying 10 wins, and I think anybody who was getting up in the 11-12 territory was probably a little bit unrealistic at this point, but 9 or 10 wins was kind of the upper end of what this season was going to be. 9 wins is basically just is the new 500, just barely above 500. 10 wins is a step above 500. The Bears are 4-4 right now. They're a 500 football team. This is 500 football teams play poorly sometimes and play good other times. That's the sign of a team that's somewhere in the middle, right? You're talking about team that's not a Super Bowl contender, but not clearly the bottom of the NFL either. You're in the middle, which means you can have really impressive games and you can have really bad games. The Arizona Cardinals have been the exact same thing. And obviously, the Cardinals looked a heck of a lot better in this game one-on-one. I'm not convinced that the Cardinals are like leaps and bounds this so much better than the Bears team. The Cardinals have played some really bad games and they played some really good games. And we saw a much better game against the Bears. And they're going to go later in the season and play some bad games. I mean, it wouldn't stun me if they lost to the New York Jets next week. You know, it's just the nature of these sort of volatile, inconsistent teams. Sometimes you can play well and sometimes you can play poorly. And right now the Bears are in this playing poorly stretch. But I think they're going to find some ways to play well again. I mean, we've seen this with Matt Eberflus. And again, this is not a defense of Matt Eberflus. I thought they should have fired Matt Eberflus after last season. I think they should still fire Matt Eberflus again after this season. But knowing that he's still going to be your coach for the rest of this season, at least, you know, you got to look at realistically, okay, then what can we expect with Matt Eberflus? And like, you think back to last year, they started 0-4, 2-7, 3-8 before they even 11 games into the season, they turned some things around here. Even that loss to get to 3-8 was a better game. Really, it was 2-7 was when the turnaround started. 9 games into the season, or 9 weeks into the season. We're currently 9 weeks into the season. And last year, the Bears found a way to turn some things around, even halfway through the year, like we are now. They went on to win, what was it? 5 of their last 8 games, including 2 of their last 3 and 3 of their last, and I guess 4 of their last 6, right? The Bears were hot at the end of last season because they found a way to turn some things around and figure some things out. Does that mean they're going to get just as hot this year? Not necessarily. But it does show that just because we're halfway through the season doesn't mean this is the finished product of what the Bears are going to look like this season, and they're never going to be any better than this. Like, yeah, they're going to win a couple more games this season. It's hard to sit here today and look at the schedule and say, yes, here's the easy win on the schedule besides the Patriots, I guess, because it's Patriots, Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers again. The Bears are not going to lose all of those games. They're going to probably beat the Patriots. They're going to win at least one division game, whether that's an inconsistent Green Bay team that just got spanked by the Lions, whether it's a weird Lions game where the Lions always play poorly against the Bears for some reason, or even just, the Vikings and Sam Darnold have been kind of coming back down to earth a bit lately. Like, the Bears will get one division game. And you never know. They could pull off a win against an injured and inconsistent San Francisco team or a fairly inconsistent Seattle Seahawks team, or they could even win multiple division games. Like, they're going to win a couple of games in here. And you can find a path here. Okay, you beat the Patriots, plus you beat one of the 49ers or the Seahawks, and then 2 division games. That gets you to 8 wins. That's a little bit disappointing based on how it felt after beating the Jaguars and the Rams and the Panthers. But again, you go back in a time machine. We talk to you at training camp and say, hey, I come from the future. All I can tell you is that the Bears finish 8-9 this season. I don't know that you're going to be floored. I don't know that you're going to be like, oh my God, what happened? What a disaster. You go, okay, things probably didn't go as well as we would have thought they would, but that's pretty reasonable, right? So that's where I want to say, hey, so let's slow down from the sky is falling and fire everybody in panic. Like, I do think a coaching staff change is what is in the best interest of Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears in the long term. I don't think the Bears are going to end up being that bad that Ryan Poles feels the need to make the change. And that's kind of the concern here, right? It's like, okay, you finished 9-8 or 8-9 either way. Let's go even conservative and say 8-9. Like, I don't know that that's bad enough for the Bears to say, all right, fire the whole coaching staff. Like, that's still one more win than they had the year before at 7-10. So you can already hear Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles saying, hey, we're making progress, right? Like, that's still what this feels like to me, that this is not going to be a good Bears team, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs at this point, but they'll be just barely good enough to keep the jobs of the coaching staff and go through this whole process one more time, at least next season. I know that's like frustrating and doom and gloom or whatever, but the point being, like, there's still value to watching the rest of the games this year. Like, the Bears are going to play better. They're still good. Like, if they're 4-4 right now, they're probably going to win another 4 games. Like, that, just statistically speaking, that's what we're expecting from this team. And so you got to tune in to find out which 4 games those are going to be, right? Like, there's going to be some other bad games too. And there's going to be games that feel like this Cardinals game where it's just like, God, this team is terrible. The Vikings are going to kill the Bears in one of those games. And maybe the Lions or the Packers are going to just destroy the Bears in one of those division games. Like, those games are going to happen, and it's going to suck, and we're going to want to fire everybody every time. That's totally fine. But there's going to be better games too. And this team's season is not completely over yet just because they're in a particularly bad spot right now. We've literally seen this coaching staff that we don't like very much, this head coach, find ways to turn it around. So, like, I think they're going to find some ways to improve. It's just not going to be nearly as much improvement as we would want to be, but it'll be enough improvement for them to keep their jobs, but not enough improvement for us to be confident that they should keep their jobs. And that's the story of being a Chicago Bears fan. But I hope listening to the Locked On Bears podcast just makes it a little bit more tolerable for you and helps you get through each game and each week here throughout the football season. And of course, throughout the offseason, because we're here for you year-round on Locked On Bears. That's why you have to hit the subscribe button, whether you watch the video version on YouTube or you subscribe or you listen on whatever podcast app you use. We're available on all those for subscription. That's the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. We'll dig into some of the All-22 and try and figure out a little bit more of what went wrong defensively against the Cardinals, what still keeps going wrong on offense for Caleb Williams and company on tomorrow's podcast. Before you know it, we can bury this one, burn the tape, and look ahead to the Patriots and maybe project a Bears win for that game as well. So a lot more coming your way this week on Locked On Bears. And with each and every episode, we're always going to give you another opportunity to bear down.